murder, kidnapping, rape, land grabbing. This is the building whereby the Mativani family, who are part of the land grabbing scheme in Uganda, are located. Ugandans are being murdered because of their rights to defend their country, to ask for justice. We are standing here today to demand the freedom of all the political prisoners who were brutally kidnapped and jailed by the brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda. When we talk about the brutal dictators around the world, Uganda comes first, because the brutal dictator of Uganda, he has been in power for over 40 years. 40 years of dictatorship. In long time, Uganda was known to be under a dictator by the name of Idi Amin. But today, if you mention the name of Idi Amin in Uganda, is like a saint. If you compare him with Museveni, the brutal dictator who has been in power for 40 years. We are talking about people who have been jailed for wearing a red beret like the one I'm wearing. We are talking about people who are talking about change. People talking about democracy in Uganda. People complaining about corruption in Uganda and are being rounded up, arrested, taken to jails, and these people are still in prisons for the last 5 years, some 6 years, some were murdered, and some are being tortured as we stand here in front of you. We are calling on the authorities in the UK to condemn the unlawful detention of political prisoners, because a multi-party system involves other parties to participate, not in Uganda, under this brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda. In the UK, we've changed 13 prime ministers, but in the brutal Uganda of today, we still live under the same dictatorship. Museveni, the brutal dictator, the junta of Uganda, people power, our power, NUP, everywhere. So as Ugandans in the UK today, we decided not to go to work, but to come here and highlight and demand that Ugandans who were illegally arrested and detained by the brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda should be set free. We are talking about people like Eddie Mutwe, Bobby Young, Yasin, Smartwa Bobby, Achileo, General Gaddafi. All these members of our community were kidnapped from the streets in Uganda, detained indefinitely without being taken before a court of law. They've never seen a judge in their life for the last 5 years. They are still in prison just for speaking out that enough is enough. They are in prison for demanding for the change of power in Uganda. Because we as Ugandans, we've been suffering under this brutal dictator Museveni for the last 40 years. Some of you are not yet born when this brutal dictator of Uganda seized power by force. We are talking about a country, Uganda, being ruled by junta for the last 40 years. We are talking about Uganda under Museveni's rule of dictatorship. We are talking about Uganda whereby Ugandans have got no freedom to speak about corruption in Uganda. Ugandans in Uganda have got no rights to talk about the kidnappings, the land grabbing, the raping of women, the sodomizing of men in Uganda under this brutal dictator, Museveni of Uganda. People power, our power, NUP, everywhere. I'm calling on the UK residents that your tax money goes to Uganda to long stay the brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda. The UK sends £1 billion to Uganda. That money is recycled and used to build the death torture chambers where Ugandans are being tortured, women are being raped, men are being sodomized under this brutal regime of the junta Museveni of Uganda. 40 years is more than enough. Ugandans have suffered enough under this brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda. In the UK pit, they've changed and we've changed 13 prime ministers in this country. The brutal dictator took power the time of Margaret Thatcher. Imagine that Margaret Thatcher was still in power. That's what is going up in Uganda. 40 years of dictatorship, 40 years of brutality, 40 years of rape, 40 years of sodomizing men in Uganda under this brutal junta, Museveni of Uganda. People power, our power, NUP, everywhere. We are from Uganda, representing 47 suffering million Ugandans under this brutal dictator, Museveni of Uganda. It's in Uganda where you get no roads. It's only in Uganda where you cannot afford a £1 paracetamol. It's only in Uganda where you don't have schools. We are the victims of the brutal dictator. As we stand here, as you see us, we are the victims of the brutal dictator of Uganda, Museveni, the junta. We left Uganda. Some of us, we are lucky to be here. But we lost our parents. We lost our families under this brutal dictator, Museveni of Uganda. We are calling on the international community, including the UK, to stop the training, the funding of the brutal dictator's army, because it's the same army which goes back to Uganda and murder our people. We are calling on the UK government to stand with the 47 suffering Ugandans in condemning the illegal arrest of all the political prisoners. We want our people back. We want all the political prisoners back. We want to free all the political prisoners from jail in Uganda. For the last 5 years, the brutal dictator of Uganda, he has been arresting Ugandans on a daily basis because they oppose him. And in the long run now, we have our people in prison for the last 5 years for merely wearing a red beret I'm wearing. Someone is in prison in Uganda for wearing a red beret I'm putting on today. Women and men in Uganda have spent 4 or 5 years for wearing the red beret. I repeat that. Wearing a red beret in Uganda means change, but to the brutal dictator means death. So the punishment in Uganda for wearing a red beret I'm wearing is to stay behind the bars for 5 years at plus without being gone, without being taken to a court of law. Museveni is the dictator of Uganda. Museveni is the chief justice in Uganda. Museveni is the magistrate in Uganda. Uganda is a failed state under this junta of Uganda, Museveni. It's only in Uganda where the president, the dictator, the wife is the Minister of Education, the son is the army commander, the brother is the Minister of Finance. This happens only in Uganda. All the money you send, all the money sent to Uganda is recycled back to the UK, and the brutal dictator in the UK, he has got over 16 billion pounds in his account. He owns the most expensive house in Holland Park, the brutal dictator of Uganda. He owns the Sun. They own the most expensive houses in the UK. This is your tax money which is being sent to Uganda. And in return, what do you get? You live on a council flat in the UK, while the brutal dictator Museveni lives in the most expensive house in Holland Park. People power. You need to ask yourself why the UK keeps sending £1 billion to Uganda every year. We are asking questions, but with no answers from the UK government. How can you send £1 billion to Uganda with no accountability? You're sending our tax money to Uganda. That money should stay in the UK and help to build more houses, to pay a good wage to our policemen who are in the streets. We've got homeless people in our streets who need accommodation. But that money is being sent to Uganda, where the money is being wasted, where the money is being used to build death torture chambers, where Ugandans are being murdered, where women are being raped, where men are being sodomized. People power, our power, NUP, everywhere. We are standing in front of the Ugandan High Commission. I'll call it. This is a crime scene. This is the representative of murder in Uganda, of rape in Uganda, kidnapping in Uganda, all being orchestrated from this building behind us. People power, our power. We have not got to work today. We have to call time off from work. We live in this country. We live in this peaceful country. But our ancestors, our brothers and sisters in Uganda are being murdered, are being raped, are being kidnapped on daily basis by the junta Museveni of Uganda. As we stand here, we might be 10 of us, but we are representing 47 suffering million Ugandans who can't stand on the street in Uganda and condemn the brutal dictators' brutalities in Uganda. We are condemning the brutal dictator of Uganda, that all political prisoners should be freed with no condition. Women in prisons in Uganda must be freed. Men with no crimes committed, just for wearing a red beret I'm wearing, they should be freed. People power, our power, NUP, everywhere. We are Ugandans living under the brutal dictator Museveni of Uganda for the last 40 years. For the last 40 years, Ugandans cannot speak a word of change in Uganda. 40 years, most of you, you are not yet born. But this is the chance for you to see that Uganda, we are living, we are dying, we are suffering under this brutal dictator, Museveni of Uganda. 40 years doesn't represent democracy. 40 years doesn't represent human rights in Uganda. 40 years represent brutality, murder, rape, kidnapping in Uganda. Uganda receives £1 billion from the UK government. But in Uganda, we don't have no working schools. We don't have no working hospitals in Uganda. We don't have no roads in Uganda. But for the last 40 years, the UK has sent 40 billion pounds. America has sent 40 billion US dollars. For the last 40 years, Uganda have received more than 120 billion from Europe, America, and the UK. But we don't have no roads in Uganda. Ugandans cannot afford a £1 paracetamol. £1. A Ugandan who is lucky to get a job is paid 50p a day. That is a lucky Ugandan. How can you live on 50p? That is the life in Uganda under this brutal dictator, Museveni of Uganda. He is the richest dictator in Africa. He is the richest brutal dictator in Africa at a cost of 16 billion pounds. But every year, the UK government sends 1 billion to Uganda. That money is invested in our rape. That money is invested in our torture. That money is invested in building death torture chambers where women are being raped, where men are being sodomized, where Ugandans are being tortured to death. People power. Our power. NUP. Everywhere. We are calling on the UK government to stop the financing of the £1 billion every year to Uganda. That money is not being invested in what is supposed to be going for in Uganda. Is helping the long stay of the brutal dictator to stay in power. The brutal dictator has a motorcade of 150 military cars. That one is at a cost of £2.5 million every day. The UK Prime Minister, he has got 3 cars. But the brutal dictator of Uganda, Museveni, he moves with 150 armored cars. The cheapest armored cars in his convoy is £150,000 for 1 car, times 150 cars he moves around with. Count and just make a quick calculation. This is all your money and my money. It's the taxpayers' money funding this brutal dictator. You are funding this brutal dictator indirectly. Through the Prime Minister and his government, they are supporting the brutal dictator of Uganda, Museveni, to stay in power for more than enough. 40 years, he has been in power for over 40 years. Most of you are not born. We are talking about the brutal dictator of Uganda, the junta of Uganda, Museveni. We are talking about a country, Uganda, where we've never had democracy, where human rights is not being respected, where women are scared to move, to walk down the road for the fear of being raped by the militias in Uganda. These military personnel are being trained at Sandhurst. Sandhurst is training militias from Uganda. And when these militias go back to Uganda, there is a problem. Damila Christophe is a Sandhurst trained military, but he's a monster in Uganda today. Muhoozi, the so-called army commander, and the son to the brutal dictator, they were all trained in the UK. They are the same people now torturing Ugandans. We don't want to believe that in Sandhurst they are being trained how to torture people. No. But they've been passed on with the techniques of torturing, including waterboarding. These brutal dictator militias, they're a problem to Ugandans. And this is your money and my money, which is financing the brutal dictator's regime in Uganda. People power. Our power. NUP. Everywhere. Thank you. Anyaka kwatako. Ochali ku simu.
Say music.
Music?
Clip will be mpimpi.
Okay.